Hello, I'm Joseph, and I'll be answering the question, is it worth buying a used 22-inch pen display, specifically the Ugee 2150, the Artist 22 from XP Pen, and from Huion, the GT 2200. These are all exactly the same pen display, pen driver, and pen tech. There's no difference in between them other than just they slap their name on top of it. And so I'll run down kind of the big thing you're going to be kind of running into, which is driver support. So this does not work on macOS anymore. The macOS 13, the latest version of macOS, you can install the drivers, set up the permissions, which is quite a lengthy process. But even after you do all that, the pen will show up, and then it just no pressure will register. And then when you lift the pen up, it'll jump to the area that it lifted to. It's not a usable solution on Windows. It works on Windows 10 and Windows 11 are both single monitor setups, meaning that this cannot work with an extended monitor setup. You can do a mirrored monitor, but if you do an extended monitor, what will happen is sometimes your cursor will go to the other side and it will not be able to come back to your pen display. It just, whatever happened in Windows 10 after 1809 or whatever that update was, it broke this driver. And so it still works. You just can't have multi-monitor set up for your computer. So if you're going to plug this in, this kind of just needs to be your primary or only monitor that you're going to have driving it. You can have it set up to a laptop. The laptop can do a mirrored mode, or you can just disable the laptop's display as you plug this in. It is 2000 levels of pressure. It is 21.5 inches long. It has quite a bit of an air gap. So if I go here, the pen you can see is not really that close, and this was after calibration. It doesn't seem to have done much of anything, and when you get to the edges it gets quite worse, but you're mostly going to be drawing in the middle, so it's not that big of a deal. This is a glass screen. There is no texture on it. If you let it get dirty, it will get a texture on it, but you cannot put a matte screen protector on this to give any type of protection because it has that ear gap. What it will do is it'll blur the entire screen, unfortunately. So on some other displays that I've had before, I could put a matte screen protector on it if it was all glass, and it would actually give me texture. But this is just slippery all around. Like I said, if you just let it get dirty, you'll eventually get more texture over time to like dust and everything else that's going to build up on top of the screen if you don't clean it. Color accuracy is okay. I think it's 120% sRGB if I'm not mistaken. And it's a 1080p monitor, but yeah, I mean, if you're really desperate and you really want a 21 or a 22-inch monitor to draw on, this can still work. A couple things to note with the pen. It is battery operated, so you will have a little barrel thing there. You can buy pen replacements still with around $15 off AliExpress. Here's like a box I got into. It was actually a generic no-name pen. That's just like further proof that this wasn't really specific to any manufacturer. It doesn't even have a label on the actual tip here, where usually it'll say Ugee or XP Pen. But this is what you'll get if you buy a pen replacement. You get the charger, which is just a USB in a little thin barrel with another pen there. So I bought a second pen just in case, because if I do drop the pen and break it, or maybe the battery dies in many years from now, I'll have a second one as a spare to continue to use this if I ever need to. I actually won't be using this. And it's not because of that single monitor setup and only working on Windows. And actually has to do with kind of the ergonomics of this. This is a really big pen display. If you have the desk space for it, a problem is that it's going to be too high for you to kind of draw. I've seen a lot of people draw on these, and they're kind of just like at weird angles or super hunched over trying to draw on these. What I know doing to try to get some ergonomics on my part is it is on an arm. This does come with a stand, but I just don't recommend it. So it's on an arm, but the arm is actually under my desk, and that's simply just to get it to be a little bit lower, or quite a bit lower, because the arm can't make the monitor go below the arm itself. And that's kind of what this needs to do, because again, it's so darn big. A big kind of design flaw with this that you'll need to check if you're getting this off of eBay is just wiggle the power cord. If it turns off, there could be an issue with the power supply or the actual barrel connector in here. This isn't that standard 3-prong connector. It's just a barrel connector, and there's no labeling on the back to tell you how many amps or voltage this needs. And if you're using this and it just starts turning on and off intermittently, then it most likely means that the power supply that you are using for this is the wrong amperage or voltage or whatever else. It's not matching the power that this is expecting to have. It is quite a bit of a bright screen. It looks yellowish on my phone from this. I'm not sure why. It's just like an off a yellowish white, but no, it's a very cool color pattern, and yeah, so it Mac OS dead end, you're not going to use it. Windows 10 and 11, it does work. Windows 8 and 7 does work, and that'll work with multi-monitor support. Linux works out of the box. You don't need to do any driver installation because there are no drivers. If you install the Digimon drivers, that'll give you the opportunity to calibrate with the Wacom interface for Linux. If not, you can use X input, but X input is all command line stuff. It's not for the faint of heart, but it works great. It works great on Linux, works still great on Windows. It just Mac is kind of a dead end on that. So hopefully that'll help you kind of make a decision whether it's worth it for you. For me, I would just say if you're just absolutely desperate and you really, really want a 22-inch drawing area, really it's a 21 and a half, but a 22-inch drawing area, and you're okay with drawing on glass that is going to be a bit slippery, then this can still be a solution for you. These can get pretty cheap. I've seen them as low as $100, sometimes even underneath that. And you can get the pen replacements. I'll put the pen replacement in the description down below from AliExpress. I did get mine off of eBay, but they don't seem to sell them there anymore, so you're kind of limited to AliExpress. It will say branded for XP Pen, but it'll work across all these different pen displays. Like I mentioned, Huion, XP Pen, and Ugee all use the same pen display. In terms of that, I'll also put nibs there if you want to get some potential extra nibs. But yeah, it's a hard thing for me to use, and that this will be my closing. In that, I have arthritis I deal with, and so a problem with the 2,000 levels of pressure is that it's a little low on my part, and I have to exert all the pressure levels to get as much dynamicness as I want from this actual pen display in the pen tech. So it caused me a lot more fatigue than it would be for what I'm using now for my primary drawing purpose, was the XP Pen Deco Pro second generation. That is a very large drawing surface, but is not a pen display. And so I've stayed away from pen displays, mostly because I don't know how long they are able to be supported, but also they're very easy to be broken and damaged. Like I had mentioned, watch out for the barrel connector here. But there's just a lot more that can go wrong with these pen displays, unfortunately. And Linux is probably the only like forward moving option if you want full support with dual monitor and stuff. But you have to work with like command line stuff to get that to map read correctly to this monitor. And yeah. Oh, one note on Windows 11 that I noticed: when a prompt comes up, that pen will like jump to some other place. And then it's not a big deal. I just take the pen off and put it back on, and it reorients it. It just does that weird jump for prompts that I've noticed. But Windows 10, it doesn't seem to have that problem. And yeah, hopefully it's helpful. I wouldn't recommend to buy it, but if you really do, you can do that. And if at worst comes to worst, you can just use this as a big pen tablet that you draw on that is a glass surface.